Once upon a time, there was a couple named Kwame and Akosua. After they got married, they faced the heartache of not being able to conceive a child. For 5 long years, they cried and prayed, longing for a miracle. Finally, their prayers were answered with the birth of their daughter, Onye. Their joy knew no bounds, and they thanked God endlessly for the precious gift of their daughter, especially after such a prolonged period of despair. One beautiful evening, after a satisfying dinner, Kwame and Akosua retired to bed. As they lay down, Onye was peacefully sleeping between them. Kwame kept gazing at their little girl, his face lit up with a gentle, contented smile. Akosua, noticing the smile on her husband's face, asked, "Kwame, why are you smiling so much tonight?" Kwame, still smiling, replied, "Can you believe we are parents now? After everything we went through, who would have thought this would be our reality?" Akosua nodded, her eyes reflecting the shared memories. "I remember all the pain and struggles. We were mocked and labeled as barren. I received countless pieces of advice, and people's stares and whispers made it even harder. Some women even tried to offer me various remedies. I was called the fair barren, and it was heartbreaking. I even contemplated giving up when someone cruelly told me I was like a man because I couldn't have children." Kwame reached out to comfort Akosua, wiping away her tears. "It's all in the past now. We have Onye, our bundle of joy. God has truly blessed us." Akosua smiled through her tears. Her 7th birthday is just around the corner. Kwame and Akosua continued to watch Onye sleep peacefully, cherishing the moment. After a while, Kwame reached over, turned off the light, and wished his wife good night. The next day, Kwame was so engrossed in work that he lost track of time and forgot to pick up Onye from school. It was the weekend, and Kwame was responsible for picking Onye up during this time. When it was already 40 minutes past dismissal and Kwame still hadn't returned with Onye, Akosua began to worry. She hoped it was just a traffic delay. As the minutes ticked by, Akosua's concern grew. She decided to call Kwame, only to find out he had completely lost track of time. Realizing how late it was, Kwame pleaded with Akosua to go and collect Onye herself. Without hesitation, Akosua left what she was doing and hurried towards Onye's school. By the time she arrived, she was already 55 minutes late. It took another 15 minutes to reach the school. As she got into a bus, she soon found herself stuck in heavy traffic. The congestion was so severe that Akosua decided to find a motorcycle taxi, which could navigate through the traffic more efficiently. In her haste, Akosua remembered that she had left her purse, which contained her phone, back on the bus she had taken earlier. Uncertain whether to continue to the school or go back for her purse, she asked the motorcycle rider to wait while she retrieved it. Akosua started walking briskly, searching for the bus she had been on. Her father is not coming. Meanwhile, at the school, little Onye sat outside with a few of her classmates, waiting for their parents to pick them up. Some of her friends had older siblings who came to collect them, while others left with their parents in groups. As the crowd thinned out and more parents arrived to take their children home, Onye sat alone, her heart sinking as she wondered if her father had forgotten her. "Onye, your father isn't coming today," one of her classmates said as she left with her mother. Onye, feeling exhausted and famished, having skipped lunch because she didn't like the food her mother had packed, decided she couldn't wait any longer. With a determined yet weary look, Onye stood up, grabbed her bag and lunchbox, and began her solitary journey home. As she walked, she felt the weight of her empty stomach and the long wait pressing down on her. A few minutes into her walk, her lunchbox slipped from her grasp and tumbled into the main road. Onye rushed to retrieve it, but a speeding car was approaching. A passerby saw her and shouted a warning, but the driver couldn't stop in time. The car hit Onye, sending her to the ground, almost lifeless and bleeding. The driver, horrified, quickly pulled over, jumped out, and scooped Onye up. With no time to wait for an ambulance, he hurriedly placed her in his car and drove off, desperate to get her medical help. Back on the road, Akosua was retracing her steps to the bus stop where she had disembarked earlier. She noticed that many of the buses had turned around to avoid the traffic jam ahead. Frustration mounting, Akosua quickened her pace, trying to locate the bus she had left. In her haste, she realized she had left her purse, containing her phone and the last of her money, on the bus. Desperate to contact Kwame and check on Oma, Akosua found herself at a loss. With no money to pay for a motorcycle ride and her phone missing, she decided to head straight to the school to use one of the teachers' phones. After a grueling walk under the scorching sun, Akosua finally reached the school. She was drenched in sweat, feeling as if she had run a marathon. The usual bustle of children was absent, and the school grounds were eerily quiet. Her heart raced as she approached the gate, hoping Oma would still be inside. As she reached for the gate, she saw the headmistress preparing to lock it. "Good afternoon, ma'am," Akosua said, forcing a smile despite her anxiety. The headmistress looked at Akosua with concern. "Good afternoon, my dear. You're sweating quite a bit. What's happened?" "I'm terribly sorry I'm so late. It seems everyone has already left," Akosua said, trying to keep her voice steady. "Yes, it's already 4 p.m. Everyone has gone home. We close early on Fridays," the headmistress explained, as she locked the gate. "What about my daughter, Oma? Is she still here?" Akosua asked, her gaze fixed on the headmistress. The headmistress shook her head. "No one is here now. Why don't you call your husband? He usually picks her up on Fridays." Akosua's heart sank. "I know Kwame well enough. He wouldn't ask me to come if he had already picked up Oma," she said, her anxiety growing. "Have you tried calling him?" the headmistress asked. "That's the problem. I left my purse, which has my phone, on the bus I was on earlier. I was so focused on picking up my daughter that I forgot. I just need to find Oma first," Akosua replied, her voice tinged with desperation. "If you had money for the bus, how did you pay the driver?" the headmistress inquired. "I had cash in hand when I got off. But now, my phone and the money are gone. My priority is finding Oma," Akosua insisted. "Take my phone and call your husband. Maybe he's picked her up after all," the headmistress said, reaching into her bag and handing Akosua her phone. Grateful and anxious, Akosua took the phone and dialed Kwame's number, her heart pounding as she hoped for a positive answer. When Kwame answered the call, Akosua's voice was trembling. She quickly asked if he had picked up their daughter, Oma, from school. Kwame, sounding equally distressed, informed her that he had been trying to reach her but couldn't get through. He was confused and worried upon hearing that Oma was missing. Without wasting a moment, Kwame told Akosua he was coming over immediately and hung up the call. Akosua's heart was heavy with worry, tears beginning to form in her eyes. She turned to the headmistress with a panicked voice. "Where is my daughter?" The headmistress was stunned, unsure how to respond. She tried to calm Akosua down and quickly contacted the teacher in charge of Oma's class. She requested the teacher to return to the school because there was a serious issue involving a missing child. Akosua, her emotions running high, felt lost. Tears streamed down her cheeks as she anxiously awaited the teacher's return, desperately hoping for any sign of Oma. After a few tense minutes, the teacher arrived back at the school. She explained that Oma had been sitting outside with her best friend, Kai, while waiting for her father. The teacher had seen Kai's mother come to pick up Kai, but she no longer saw Oma. She had assumed that Oma's father had come to collect her. Akosua asked the teacher to call Kai's mother to check if Oma had gone home with her. As the teacher scrolled through her contact list to find Kai's mother's number, a call came in on the headmistress's phone. "Hello, madam," I think one of your students had an accident a few minutes ago, the voice said urgently. The headmistress's face paled as she listened. The description matched almost. She struggled to find the right words to inform Akosua and Kwame about the devastating news. Watching Kwame console Akosua, who was sobbing uncontrollably, the headmistress felt a deep sense of pity and confusion. She knew she had to prepare for the worst. Earlier, when Omar was hit by the speeding car, the driver, Andrew, had been on the phone with a business associate. He was distracted and only heard the commotion when Omar was struck. Realizing what had happened, Andrew immediately stopped his car, picked up Omar, and placed her in the vehicle. Driven by the urgency of the situation, he sped towards the nearest hospital, praying she would survive. Andrew, drenched in sweat from the intense drive, arrived at the hospital with Omar. She was severely injured, with blood coming from her mouth and head. It looked like she had hit her head on the car's iron bumper before hitting the ground. The nurses took Omar into their care as soon as Andrew arrived, and the doctor, who had been busy with another patient, was summoned urgently. Andrew paced nervously in the hospital, growing more anxious with every passing minute as the doctor walked. When the doctor finally emerged with a solemn expression, Andrew rushed to him. "How is she?" Andrew asked, fear evident in his voice. The doctor looked at Andrew with a grave face. "I'm sorry, but the accident was very severe. Omar has internal brain bleeding. We've done what we can with medications and injections, but she needs immediate surgery to survive." Andrew, desperate to save the little girl, pleaded, "Please, go ahead with the surgery. I'll cover all costs and sign any documents needed. I don't want her to die." The doctor shook his head. "We don't have the necessary equipment here. You'll need to take her to another hospital with the right facilities. I'll provide you with a referral note." Andrew, unfamiliar with the area and the available hospitals, decided to drive Omar to his city, where he hoped better medical facilities would be available. He asked the doctor if it was feasible to transport Omar on a 4 to 5 hour journey. The doctor agreed and handed Andrew the referral note along with another injection for Omar. Back at the school, the headmistress tried to keep Akosua calm while she awaited further updates. Akosua's heart was in turmoil, filled with dread and helplessness as she prayed for her daughter's safety. The headmistress called out softly to Kwame and Akosua. Both of them turned to see why she was calling. "I just received a call. Your daughter, Omar, was involved in an accident." Akosua's heart raced. "My daughter was involved in an accident? Where? Where did it happen?" she demanded urgently. Without waiting for more details, Akosua dashed off in the direction the headmistress had indicated. Kwame immediately followed, running after his wife toward the scene of the accident. When they arrived, they were told that the man who had hit Omar had taken her away. Since no one knew which hospital she had been taken to, the headmistress, the teacher, and the worried parents quickly hailed a taxi and headed for the closest hospital. In the taxi, Kwame was seething with frustration, feeling that he was to blame for the situation. Akosua clung tightly to him, her tears flowing freely as she hoped for good news. The headmistress and the teacher shared their anxiety, wishing for Omar's well-being. When they reached the first hospital, Akosua rushed inside and asked the nurses if they had seen a little girl in a school uniform who had been involved in an accident. The nurses checked their records but found no information about such an incident. Disappointed but determined, Akosua and Kwame moved on to the next hospital. At the third hospital, they were informed that a little girl matching Omar's description had indeed been admitted. They were asked to wait while staff found out which ward she was in. Akosua felt a glimmer of hope that she might finally see her daughter. After what felt like an eternity, a doctor emerged to speak with them. Akosua, her voice trembling, asked, "Doctor, how is my daughter? Where is she? Can we see her?" The doctor, recognizing the parents' distress, took a deep breath. "I'm so sorry to inform you," he began, "but your daughter was involved in a severe accident. When she arrived here, she was bleeding from her head. After a thorough examination, we discovered she has internal brain bleeding." Akosua's face went pale. "Internal bleeding? Where is she? I need to see her," she pleaded, tears streaming down her face. The doctor continued, "She needs immediate surgery to stop the bleeding completely. We've given her some medication and injections to manage the situation temporarily. However, our hospital lacks the necessary equipment for the surgery. The man who brought her here decided to take her to a larger hospital in his city, which has the right facilities." Akosua and Kwame were devastated. "Which city? Do you have his contact?" Akosua asked the doctor, but he shook his head. Overcome with despair, Akosua fainted. When she awoke, she sobbed uncontrollably, questioning why this was happening. Kwame held her tightly, trying to console her. The headmistress pleaded with Kwame not to blame the school, but all Kwame wanted was his daughter back. Meanwhile, Andrew rushed to a hospital with better facilities for Oma. After a long wait, the doctor informed them that the surgery was successful, though Oma might face temporary memory and speech issues. Tina and Andrew were relieved and thanked the doctor. Seeing Oma in her hospital bed brought Tina to tears, but Andrew comforted her. Back home, Akosua was heartbroken, feeling the weight of her daughter's disappearance. She prayed fervently, asking God to protect and heal Oma, trusting in his power to bring her child back to health. Kwame and Akosua were sleepless and consumed with worry over their missing daughter, Oma. At the hospital, Tina was in tears as she watched over Oma, recalling the pain of losing her own child, Pascal, to leukemia. She and her husband, Andrew, resolved to stay with Oma and find a way to help her parents. The next morning, Kwame reported Oma's disappearance to the police. Meanwhile, Andrew left the hospital to search for Oma's parents, only to discover his tires were flat. After fixing them, he headed towards the city where Oma was found, but realized her school uniform had mysteriously gone missing from his car. Who could have taken Oma's uniform? What does it mean? Stay tuned for the next episode. Please like, comment, share, and subscribe for more stories. Thank you.